4.75% increase compared to the same period in 2024, as a total of products valued at 1,791 billion US dollars were exported between January and March 2025, compared to 1,436 billion US dollars in the first quarter of 2024. This was revealed in the Nigerian Export Promotion Council first quarter performance report for 2025. The volume also increased to 2.416 million metric tons, which is an increase of 243.44% from 1.937 million metric tons recorded in the first quarter of 2024. Our volume of export also surged significantly to 2.416 million metric tons, representing a 243.44% increase from the 1.937 million metric tons recorded in the same period last year. Now, to talk more on this significance of this expansion, I have with me via Zoom line lead consultant and chief executive officer of Free T Impex Consulting Limited, Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo. Thank you so much for joining us at this point. Now, let's looking at this situation.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you for joining.
All right, thank you very much for joining us at this point. So looking at this situation right now, let's talk about these issues with the non-oil export. Is this good news for Nigeria?
Definitely. Definitely good news considering what is currently going on. The fact that we have a big issue with oil prices, and there are projections that government revenue is going to reduce. Export of oil is going, export proceeds from oil is going to decline, and that will affect the volume of FX coming into the economy, and our demand for FX is not reducing. That likely going to put more pressure on Naira and consequently make Naira to depreciate. So our best bet, our best option, our go-to place is non-oil export growth. So this is a good news, and congratulations to NEPC for this good news.
All right, so the fact we're all happy about this particular news. It's quite great news for all of us, but there are still concerns as to the fact that people believe that some of the policies of government do not get to the grassroots. And looking at for a lot of people who try to export goods out of the country, there seem to be some bottlenecks. So it means that do you share the optimism that we might have had more than the numbers we're having at this time?
No, so when I saw the news, what came to my mind is, and I appreciate if NEPC can really come out to say something about this. NEPC is doing a lot, no doubt, but it's good we identify what have they done that led to this increase. Because when you look at the data, the two factors that contributed to the increase are cocoa and urea. Cocoa and urea. Last year, there was an increase also from 4.7 to about 5.2 or 5.4, almost 20-something% increase also year on year. And it was cocoa and urea. Now, urea, Dangote fertilizer has come upstream, is producing. So Dangote production is increasing. That, in my opinion, must have contributed to the increase we saw. Then for cocoa price is going up. So even though I'm not sure we are exporting more volume of cocoa, even though from the data provided there is volume increase in the volume of commodity export, but for cocoa, I'm not sure we're encoding as much volume compared to the export proceeds we are getting. So for me, sometimes it's important when you are doing something, you are doing different things, you need to be sure of which of them is giving you. It's like the 80% rule, Pareto 80-20 rule. Which of these 20% effort is generating this 80% result? I think NEPC need to come out, identify that, and find out. Because if you don't, because from the data I can see, it doesn't look like the lot of effort of NEPC is the one generating it. It doesn't look like that. I might be wrong. But it would be good if they can say, okay, we did this and this is the result. We did this and this is the result. Because from this, the people that export are still the same people exporting. That means there is no significant increase in the number of exporters. And it's the same commodity that is accounting for it. So it'd be good for them to be able to say, look, this is what we are doing and this is how we're getting this result, because then it becomes easier to replicate, because we need to replicate this and scale it to be able to really see the kind of result we want as far as non-export is concerned. About the bottleneck you talk about, I don't think the bottleneck, people talk a lot about bottleneck. Bottleneck The bottleneck in export right now is not the bottleneck of the port. It's the challenge of government support to boost volume of what we are shipping, giving single-digit interest rate to reduce cost of production for exporters, and then infrastructure to be able to ship within Africa under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. Those are the kind of thing I think we should be talking about. In terms of bottleneck, challenge at the ports, that's non-existent in my opinion. Compared to where we were coming from, we are a lot better right now at the port.
All right, so you earlier mentioned about the fact that the same people that exported last year, the same people exporting this year. Is that not a concern? Because we see that the government is trying to create avenues for employment of labor, yet we still have the same people, like you have said, who are exported last year, still the same people exporting this year. Is that a huge concern for you?
It's a concern. A lot of new people are coming in, but not significant. What would I say? So look at the challenge in the export sector. There was a year, NEPC said they've registered about 15,000 businesses. Okay. But that same year, 1,171 companies exported. According to Nigeria Promotion Council, 1,172, by the way, exported. According to Nigeria Promotion Council, meaning less than 10%. Every year, we have new people joining, but not everybody is exporting. But you see some company, the top exporter, you see them consistently. That some company are the one doing the export. Now, that's a concern because, do you know the challenge? These companies are getting to their peak. Because they are getting to their peak, that's why Nigerian export is not growing the way it should. We need a lot of new entrants coming in. So, for example, UK population is about 70 million people, but UK have almost 150,000 exporters. US over 300 million people, US have almost 300,000 exporters. Nigeria is over 200 million people. People that exported last year are not up to 1,500. That is a concern. And the concern really is what I think the government needs to do, because we need to increase the number of exporters in Nigeria. And that will require a lot of support regarding export readiness, particularly for SMEs. And this to be done for manufacturers. So for me, it's a concern, because the reason we are not really growing the export the way it should is because we don't have a lot of new people that can do volume coming into this space.
So how do we now increase the number of exporters into to ensure that we can export our goods and we're also self-sufficient?
To increase the number of exporters, we need to create incentive. I'm a business, I'm doing business A, or I'm in a sector A, but government is creating incentive in sector B and I have some money to play around. I'll be interested in coming to the sector because government is providing the necessary support and incentive. So if government does not incentivize it, a business that is doing well, that is not thinking of export, will not come into the sector. But if they can see a lot of incentive from the government, tax holiday, grant, and the like for example, government have what is called export expansion grant, but more often than not, people sometimes 3, 4, 5 years are not even getting any support from the government because it's not even in the budget, and NPC cannot provide that support because the government is not budgeting for it. Those can, in fact, if there is a time for us to support export, to have a budget for incentive for exporter, like grant for export, this is the time. Why? Because we need a lot of exporters. Let me tell you what China is doing. You know, a lot of issues are happening right now with China and US. And you know what the Chinese government is doing? Chinese government, number one, is providing for the businesses in China single-digit loan, number one. Very low interest, number one. Number two, they are providing export credit insurance and grant. They want the business to look for other market. Leave America, look for other market. If you lose money in that market because it's new, we are going to support you. We are going to insure your export proceeds. So that at the end of the day, if you lose money, government is going to reimburse you so that you can continue. So that businesses can keep growing and you won't have to retrench people and make people lose jobs, and that affecting the economy. So we need to get more people into the sector. There must be incentive. And as people come in, there must be deliberate effort to get them export ready. International trade is knowledge intensive. Deliberate effort to get them export ready, supporting them with necessary mentoring and coaching programs that will make them to be export ready and reduce the risk of loss in the export market.
Okay, so let's talk about the products that were the highest export, like you mentioned earlier, cocoa and urea. Now, cocoa beans alone accounted for 45.02% of total non-export, non-oil export maintaining its lead position, while urea fertilizer ranked second with 19.32% and cashew nuts third with 5.81%. All of this we have seen people export all the time, and it will definitely gain ground. Are there other things that we can export beyond all of this?
You know, if you look at that report also talking about the fact that when you look at the type of product exported, there was an increase in the type of product exported. Nigeria have different kind of product. In fact, the report said from 197 to 197, moved to 197 plus 162. 197 different products. So Nigeria actually exports more than 200 this kind of product. And this will be of concern to me, because if our top export every year is commodities, we are not going to be able to make most of the money from the export market. If you look at the global trade right now, according to United Nations, global trade is about 33 trillion. 33 trillion. 26 trillion is trading goods. About 7 to 8 trillion is trading services. So sorry, about 25 trillion is trading goods. About 7 to 8 trillion is trading services. Now, trading goods, if you look at that 25 trillion trading goods, about 60% is manufactured goods, value add. They are either you are doing intermediate or finished goods. In fact, intermediate take a good chunk of value-added product. Intermediate like cocoa to cocoa butter, cashew to processed cashew nut, lead to lead ingot. Now, if you look at these, you realize that the contribution of commodity in this mix is just about $3-4 trillion. Manufactured good, value-added good take the lead in this regard, meaning we definitely, in as much as we should continue doing cocoa, we should continue doing cashew, we should continue doing others, but we must be also deliberate about exporting value-added products. Let me give you a good example. Cocoa beans, total market size for cocoa beans, total demand for cocoa beans is just about $11-12 billion. But chocolate is about more than $30 billion. So the question is, who is making money from the value chain of cocoa? Is it the West African country that exports about 75% of cocoa supply in the world, or Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, who are adding value to it? So at the end of the day, you realize that even though we are the one producing the raw materials, the people adding value are the one making all the money from this sector.
So it means that the manufacturing sector has to sit up.
Yes.
If we have to take advantage of the byproduct of this cocoa, especially that we are producing here.
Manufacturers must sit up, so government must support them. There must be deliberate able to support manufacturers. And in Nigeria, sometimes you'll be wondering, what really do we want? We are not giving manufacturing sector the kind of support. I'm comparing now, not because the government is not doing anything, but I'm comparing the way they are treated in other clients. How much kind of support they get from the government to be able to ensure that nothing happens to them. Whatever we make them not to produce, government ensure they resolve the issue. When the government cannot help, they give them palliative support, incentive, in terms of tax break, in terms of grant, just to ensure that they can produce competitively and supply in the export market. We have AFCFTA right now. We need to do a lot under AFCFTA. But guess what? We're not doing so much yet. And what we make us to thrive under AFCFTA will be value-added goods. Why? Because many African countries are not going to buy commodity from Nigeria. Apart from crude oil, maybe fertilizer, but they're not going to buy cocoa or cashew. Why? Because they also don't process as much as we don't process. They are going to buy finished goods. If you go and check the data of current export of Nigeria to Africa, West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, it's mainly value add. So we must do something serious to support the manufacturing sector.
So looking at what you have said earlier about government incentives and all of that, that same for many, especially those who want to go into export of this product and manufacturing as well, that might be what we say in local parlance, a long thing. So what can be done in the midterm or in the immediate term to ensure that we have more people exporting out of Nigeria, even if it's on a small scale?
Incentives. So for example, if I'm shipping by air, let me talk about that small scale you mentioned. If I'm shipping by air is costly because of the challenge of fuel price, the exchange rate to be able to buy jet A fuel for the plane, and that increase the cost of shipping by air. So what does government around the world do to support businesses to ship more by air? Because that increases the velocity of money, the turnover, the speed of delivery and payment. They give incentive. How do they incentivize? They support with, they give rebate on the cost of freight. That means if a cargo plane is coming in, for every good is carrying out, maybe 40%, 30%, 60% is paid for by the government, and the people pay the remaining, and that crashed the cost of shipping by air. There was a time I went to do a shipment to the UK. The good itself, just about 2 million plus. The cost of shipping it is about 2.5 million. In spite of that, it was still slightly profitable. Imagine, it wasn't at a loss. Imagine if I can crash that cost, because I typically ship by sea. But this, we have to do a faster shipment by air because we need to get into the market before the Christmas break at that particular year. But imagine if the government is supporting. A lot of people will do shipment by air. It will arrive there on time, then they can get paid on time, and they can do more volume every year because government is supporting. Those are the things government can do in incentive, in reducing the cost of shipment by air in order to make us more competitive in the export market.
So, without government support now, what can small-scale exporters do? How can they get some of these incentives?
No, I mean, who is going to give incentive? It's not government. It's government that will give incentive. But what a small-scale exporter can do coming in, what I strongly recommend is getting export ready. Meaning there are platforms you can do free export readiness assessment and be able to know the area of gaps that you need to fill before you start, so as to minimize the issue, the risk of loss, minimize any issue that can happen along the line that can make you lose money. A lot of people have come into this sector, have lost money. In fact, one of the major challenges, recently I saw on the data of the rejection of Nigerian products by the EU. Do you know that every week, maybe another time we'll be talking about this issue of rejection. Every week, there is a product of Nigeria rejected. Every week, there is a product rejected. From the data, in the last 5 years, there's a product rejection every week. And the major culprit is salmonella. Salmonella, for most of our food. Salmonella, that's a bacteria. Now, but this can be fixed. This can be fixed. This can be prevented. That is where export readiness is. That's why you must know your product well enough to know where the issue is. Is it before planting, during planting, before harvest, during harvest, or during processing? Where does the contamination come in? And how do you prevent it and be able to reduce the risk of rejection when you go get to the export market? So for me, for small businesses, export readiness, capacity building, to be able to do the business successfully and sustainably will be my recommendation.
Now that Nigeria's exported more in the first quarter and we have done so well, how do we sustain this?
Very good question. Very good question. We need to know, what did we do that made this happen? In my own estimation, if what data I'm looking at is anything to go by, it doesn't appear, I can't trace exactly what the government did that will make it happen. I may be wrong. I may be wrong. So that's why it would be good for anybody to say, these are the things we have done, and this is how it directly led to this increase. The way to sustain this is to be able to know, out of all the government policies, which of them really contribute to this increase. I know government is doing training for exporter. I know government is doing some coaching, mentoring for exporter. I know government is supporting with quality, helping certification. But I can't trace any of this to this result I'm seeing. I can't. I may be wrong, like I said. I can't trace it. But if any person can trace it, that is exactly what we need to focus on going forward and scale it so that we can increase the volume and probably drive the next quarter, maybe Q2, probably this one is 25, maybe 50%, and Q3, maybe 100%. And then we can say, yes, we are doing a lot within this space.
What part is the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement playing? What role is it playing in this regard?
We have signed this agreement. We have ratified the agreement. It has been, the government has signed off with the document to gazette it. Whether it's been done, the last time I was on the platform with customer and I asked about if the gazetting has been done so that people can bring in goods into Nigeria duty-free. And the customs officer said the process is ongoing, that it will soon be completed. So currently, we can't do so much with it. In fact, there are reports that some Nigerians ship goods to Cameroon, and the Cameroonian Customs says, no, your good cannot enter our country duty-free because our good cannot enter your country duty-free under AFCFTA. Because of this Gazette. Thank God the president has been able to do his own bit. It's not all the bureaucracy among the government agents. I don't know what the process is and how it will ask it to be done, but at least it's in motion, it to be completed. It's ongoing, but we have not done so well and so much in this, maybe because of a lot of issues around it. But for me, as the government is doing whatever they need to do, then there's need for us also to begin to do what we need to do to grow, to increase this trade in Africa. And one of the things we need to do is still coming back to the same issue I mentioned, export readiness, to be able to trade in Africa. In addition to this, because Africa has a huge capacity to help us grow our export. But we won't be able to do much if we don't fix infrastructure for movement of goods. Two major challenges were identified: payment issue, which has been fixed through Afrexim Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, but we have not fixed the issue of movement of goods, particularly by sea, so that we can have a maritime, a shipping line that can move goods from Nigeria to West Africa, to Central Africa, to Southern Africa, to East Africa. If we don't fix that, we won't be able to reap the dividend that will stand to benefit under the FCFTA. The minister is doing a lot on trading services and digital trade, which is good. The only challenge I have with that is that we still have a lot to do in that space to be able to achieve what she wants to achieve, which is good. But we should not do that at the expense of trading goods, that we can start reaping the result immediately if we fix the major challenge that we have within that space.
All right, Dr. Bamidele Ayemibo, lead consultant and CEO, 3T Impex Consulting Limited. Thank you very much for talking to us. Of course, you're so happy about this development, and I'm sure you like a lot of chocolates.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much.
All right.